It's Waxing Lyrical Baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical Mains and Dutch. I'm your host, Mains, and my colleague, a man who would never, ever have a girlfriend called Blue of Earth. It's Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
No, I also don't want to buy any hemp. I'm good for pegs, and I don't want to sleep in a teepee.
If you don't know what we're talking about, Aaron Rodgers has a new girlfriend called, and I quote, Blue of Earth. It was shared on Insta. She was at IG Live, and I saw it on Twitter. She made some noises that can only be described as scary. She's allegedly a witch. I don't really know. I suppose you can just live the life. No one's necessarily saying you need to turn people into different animals. But she made some noises that made me believe that she was a Bond villain, and a very scary one at that. Good luck to Aaron and all who sailing him. Considering he's at OTAs and he's already started slagging off the wide receivers, it's going to be fun as always in Green Bay. That man brings sunshine to everywhere he goes.
I think about retirement every day, then don't sign the multi-million-dollar contract, you prick.
Yeah, he's an interesting cat, right? This is where the concept of talent over how much you allow them to get away with is put to the infinite test. Let's move on. Let's talk about what we're going to do this week in the show. We've got two fantastic weird worlds as a top season, and we're in that world. We got some NFL news, a sale, multiple contracts, and two equally sickening, well, not equally sickening, two sickening bits of NFL news that we should really get into, one of which I'm going to rant a lot about. Next, then Neil quite rightly pointed out that we should start looking at coaches on the hot seat, and I said, well, how will that affect my fantasy team? So Neil has a list of 5 coaches who he believes are already on the hot seat for 2022. I have additional ones, but we also want to see what them being on the hot seat will do for their teams, especially from a fantasy point of view. Should we get on with the show, Neil?
I think we should.
Let's get on. Let's talk some weird world. Neil, there is an eternal debate in the United Kingdom about a Jaffa cake, and that eternal debate is a Jaffa cake a cake or a biscuit? I don't care because I don't like chocolate and fruit mixed together, especially chocolate and orange. It's awful. However, I do believe that sometimes some people say it's a cake or a biscuit based on size. Sky News report that a Great British Bake Off winner, one of your favourite shows, created the world's largest Jaffa cake, weighing 80 kilograms and nearly 2 meters wide. What you get if you mix 160 eggs, 8 kilograms of dark chocolate, and 15 kilograms of orange jelly?
Diabetes.
A fever dream. The world's largest ever Jaffa cake. Frances Quinn, Neil, know her?
Yes,
no,
I remember Frances, yes.
Don't know what series. She probably got a handshake from Paul. Good on her. The tasty feat was accomplished by her alongside McVitie staff using the company's top secret recipe. Haven't they just told me the recipe above? The giant cake, and yes, Jaffa cakes are cakes according to Sky News. There we go. Rupert Murdoch stamping his authority on this debate, was the equivalent of 6,557 regular sized Jaffa cakes and measured 175 metres in diameter. Mrs. Quinn baked the 80 kilogram creation in the celebration of the 15th anniversary of Britain's Got Talent. What? Why has Britain's Got Talent been on for 15 years? Anyway, that's not what I want to ask. Neil, 2 questions for you. 3 questions, sorry. Question 1, Jaffa cake, cake or biscuit?
It's a cake, and it's called a cake because when it goes stale, it gets soft. If it was a biscuit, if it went stale, it would go hard, which is why it's called a cake. You also, another hint of why it's called a cake, it's called Jaffa cake on the box.
Do you like Jaffa cakes?
Would rather lick the floor of any public toilet you care to name than eat Jaffa cakes. Vile things. Awful.
Awesome. So the answer to the third question is, how long would it take you to eat this? And that is infinite time.
infinite time because literally I will just come out, look at it, and then go and make my choice elsewhere. I can't abide them. The chocolate is never nice. It's too orangey. I mean, I love chocolate orange. Terry's chocolate orange.
Okay.
Other chocolate oranges are available.
Are they though?
But, yeah, that's a good point. But the few times I have tried Jaffa Cakes, it's not a pleasant taste. It's not quite, but it's up there with orange juice after you brush your teeth.
Ooh, which is one of, if not the worst tasting things ever.
Yeah.
I think that's what we should state, that Waxing Lyrical, anti-Jaffa Cake. And let's move on to the next story. Do you ever get them kids that come round and ask, can you wash your car? We
don't, which is a shame because my car's filthy and I can't be bothered doing it myself.
It seems. Yeah, up there right away. Headline from the Mirror this week. My neighbour is demanding I let her son mow my lawn. He's charging £12 a week. A man has been left baffled after his neighbour demanded he let her son mow his lawn as he refuses to pay the kid £12 a week for a job he could easily do himself. One man on Reddit has been confused after his neighbour demanded he allow his son to mow his lawn for him, even after he told the family he was more than capable of doing it himself. The man from, yes, you guessed it, the US, explained that his neighbour's son is charging $15 a week for the service and the man isn't interested in paying that when he doesn't need to. However, turning down the offer has seemingly angered the man's neighbours, as he has now been accused of making the young boy's life more difficult by not paying for his services. My question is this kid's parents like mafioso?
Well, yeah, I think that's the only thing that we can possibly say here. Because even if they were mafioso, though, get a job in the cab stand, keep it all in-house. We've seen Goodfellas, R.I.P. Ray Liotta. We know we know this is how it works. You don't branch out. And as I say, it's can I mow your lawn? No, I don't need you. The lawn mowing, thank you very much. Next morning, the neighbour wakes up and the lawn has been burnt. That's how mafioso would approach this. This is just a sweeping generalization. This is just a Karen wanting her little darling to get some money to do a job that, let's be honest, he probably won't do a very good job of. It certainly won't be the, immaculate lines looking like a Lord's outfield. It's just a ridiculously entitled parent trying to force their entitlement onto their offspring.
I flipping hate cutting the grass. Like, absolutely hate it. I'm gonna highlight probably one of the most Tory statements ever. I used to have a gardener who I paid to do my garden because I hated it that much. I don't anymore. I have to do it myself. It's on the list of things to do tomorrow. I'm dreading it because I flipping hate it. However, I'm not 100% sure I'm paying a 12-year-old 15 quid to do it, because as it's pretty obvious, I've got a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old. They would probably cut their own foot off with the lawnmower and also do an absolutely awful job.
Yeah, I will give you $5 to clean my car. 10 if you do inside and out. Last
so I had this
offer.
So my eldest washed the car with his mum a couple of weeks ago, and got paid more money than the local car wash would have charged me. And my understanding is, based on the conversation I had with said mother, is there was no barter. She gave him a price and he accepted it, and she just started too high with my money.
So, I've met your good lady on several occasions, of course. She's not Peter Ridsdale, so where did she learn this negotiating tactic from?
It was the Seth Johnson, we'll give you £65,000 a week. And he's like, I was only expecting 20. Yes, I'll take it.
You drive a hard bargain, Peter.
Yeah, so sure, there was Alfie winning at life. This kid not winning at that neighbour's garden, although if you continue later on in the story, he does do 3 other gardens in the area. So this kid must be looking to buy a car in the next few weeks,
or just buy a litre of petrol.
Yeah, well, this is the classic years in America, where they're kicking off that they're paying 81 pence a litre. hey America, fuck off.
Yeah. In the words of one of your greatest exports, cry me a river.
If you have any weird Wales stories that you'd like me and Neil to talk about during the off-season, just send them over. Link at waxing_lyrical or to me and Neil individually at endutton13 or at mainsy7. Yeah, let's get on with the NFL news. Since we've last been on the show, it's been a big contract-related news dump. 3 major contracts being signed in the last week or so. Aaron Donald, Cooper Kupp and Hunter Renfrow. Let's start with Aaron Donald, who, based on what I understand, didn't get an extension and someone just said, here's an extra $40 million. Do you want to carry on playing the NFL? And he went, cool. And so he is. And unlucky NFC West quarterbacks.
Pretty much. I mean, the case can be made. The case can be made. You say anything, depends how well you make the argument, but I digress. He's probably the best non-quarterback in the league. For what he is, for what he does, he is a game wrecker. And, you can double team him. You can triple team him. You can try and run plays away from him. He is relentless. He will get to you. He will get the ball. He is inevitable. So you can argue that if there was going to be a player worthy of this type of pay rise, it would be Aaron Donald. It's one of those, though, now, was his I'm at peace with retirement, was this a genuine thought? Or was this just media speak? Because I'm always of the opinion, especially in sport, especially a physical sport that they play, as soon as you start thinking about retirement, you're halfway out the door. Unless you're Ben Roethlisberger, in which case you are halfway out the door, but you keep getting pushed back in it. I won't miss him. He's, as we've said countless times, I do not begrudge these people their money in the slightest. The Rams operate on a different scale to every other team. So they've worked out we can pay him. We don't have to worry about everyone else because we're going to keep getting comp picks because we let people hit free agency. We'll just keep, trading the first rounders. And, we'll keep hitting for fifth, 6th, 7th rounders and undrafted free agents. They've worked out that they can afford to keep paying their stars. And hats off to them. It works. I don't think it'll work for everyone.
Averaging salary of $30 million over the length of the contract. I always like seeing cool things like dead cap hits, and this year's dead cap hit is $73 million. He's obviously not doing that. As you said, he's a wonderful player, and probably I think is the best non-quarterback player in the league. But whatever. Let's move on to his teammate. Another man getting money. Average salary for him, a mere $26.7 million. 3 years, $80 million for Cooper Kupp, who last year gone exploded and became the best wide receiver in the league.
He came out quite early on in proceedings and said he wasn't looking to reset the wide receiver market, which I'm sure came as a welcome knock at the door of the financial officers at the Rams. To come in and show the level of chemistry he did with Matthew Stafford, with no links between them previously, was incredible. It shows something that Cooper Kupp has been, I'm not going to say underrated, but I think he's been overlooked at times ever since he came into the NFL. But when he wasn't a high pedigree draft pick, because he came from, I want to say Eastern Washington or somewhere like that. But he's been bloody good when he's been healthy in the NFL. And the league has shown this offseason wide receivers are going to get paid. So, again, I think this is in a vacuum, this is a move the Rams had to make. Was it a move that I would have made, given how, that they've got other players? Jalen Ramsey, he signed a deal 2 years ago. He's going to start knocking as well. But, again, it shows that they don't want 2021 to be we went all in to win our Super Bowl and we won one. No. They're thinking dynasty here.
I think sometimes, certain teams, if we cut out the Patriots of it all, that when you're good, you have to pay your players, and you may as well attempt to pay them all while you can before you then become crap again, because that's how the kind of league works. And I do sometimes wonder if teams try and have a happy middle ground. We can all laugh at the New Orleans Saints now, but they did try and win regularly, and in theory, I think weirdly, are still trying to win now. They're just going to be failing.
That's the problem.
I think they're going to be failing miserably at said concept. We're talking there, 4 players? I'd guess Stafford, Donald, Cup, and Ramsey, who are going to be $100 million combined. I think already they are over the salary cap for next year by about $14 million. And creative accountant will sort that out. That's fine. But their job is stars and mid-round draft picks. So, because, F them picks. But they do pick a lot of players. They just don't pick them in the first round. That's the myth of the F them picks. It's F them first round picks that you have to pay a lot of money to. So yeah, it's one of them. Should they pay Cooper Kupp? Well, yeah, because they got Matthew Stafford, and as you said, that was magical chemistry. So why would you throw that away? Final player contract today. Well, overnight, I guess. Hunter Renfrow signs a new contract with the Las Vegas Raiders in 2 years, $32 million. One of them weird players who I think the internet adore, absolutely love Hunter Renfrow. Been good for the Las Vegas Raiders.
It's not that old.
It's not that old, no. And I guess the question is, I assume he gets less production because of Devontae Adams, but actually he's probably going to get easier targets given the amount of coverage that Devontae Adams will get.
Yeah, I like Hunter Renfrow. I think he's one of those players that, on my rare sojourns of watching college football, I saw him 2 years before he came out, and he was old then. He's come in. He's landed in a perfect scheme for him. Obviously, last year they didn't have Darren Waller for large stretches of time. They lost Henry Ruggs, of course, and their running game was not the best. So it was a perfect storm for him. He was productive. He was quite efficient. Deadly route runner. I say some of his, especially in the high red zone, some of them, it's like, my God, Hunter, these men have got families. And I think the case could be made that this was quite a team-friendly deal. I mean, obviously they've had to pay Devontae Adams, but we've seen that Josh McDaniels comes from a club that doesn't exactly shy away from using their slot receivers. And especially if they can play outside as well, that's an advantage. But if they are just, if they do their best work inside, he can get them the ball. So, again, I don't think this isn't a market-setting deal by any stretch of the imagination. No one's going out and claiming that Hunter Renfrow is a top-tier wide receiver. But what he does very well. So it's good to see that, again, the Raiders are surrounding their quarterback with weapons and keeping them there for the long term. It's not a bad thing to give your quarterback weapons, especially ones he has chemistry with.
It's not. And it's really funny because the Las Vegas Raiders went 10-7 last year, made the playoffs, signed one of the best wide receivers in the league, and I think if you took a poll of 100 NFL fans, 90 of them would say that the Las Vegas Raiders are going to finish 4th in the AFC West. And I don't really think that's anything to do with anything they've done. Weirdly, it's usually they've done some stupid thing or whatever. I don't really think they have done stupid things. I just think that they're not as talented as the other 3 teams. Now, that doesn't mean that if they were in the AFC South, they wouldn't be the best team, because they probably would be, but they're not, and they're in the AFC West, and that's an issue. I think you should pay Hunter Renfrow. I think you should surround quarterbacks like Derek Carr with as much talent as possible. We've been down this road before.
Yeah, I won, you didn't.
I won, you won, I didn't. I do like, though, that certain podcasters and journalists who we like and follow have started the Carr continuum, where he is now the lowest point on which you can win with. So, maybe I was right.
So he's the new Dalton scale.
He's the new Dalton scale, but they called it the Carr continuum because I assume Dan, Mark, Greg, and obviously Wes, who couldn't but would sue them. So Robert and Nate have gone for the Carr continuum. Let's move on, Neil. You may want to take a step back here.
Okay. I'll be back in a minute.
The defensive coordinator of the Washington Commanders was quoted yesterday in a press conference saying that the January the 6th, I don't really know what to call it as a British person.
Insurrection.
I was going to say insurrection. I think that's probably the right word, isn't it? On the Capitol building was a dust-up, and likened it to the protests after George Floyd was murdered by a police officer. Today,
this is not Del Rio's first rodeo, either. Stupid comments.
I think what we should call stupid right-wing racist comments. I think I'm allegedly racist. I don't know. Is he going to listen to this? Is he going to sue me? I don't know. I put on Twitter immediately, he should be immediately fired. He should have been if we want to talk football, should have been immediately fired last year. They're paying $1 billion for the defensive line and can't get to the quarterback. Fire the defensive coordinator. He's just been fined $100,000, and a very strong statement by Coach Ron Rivera. I don't think those two things correlate, by the way. The statement suggests that he should be immediately fired. Is $100,000 a lot of money? Yes. Is it a lot of money to Jack Del Rio? Probably. It's not generational wealth, because I assume he's earned millions of dollars a year for the past 10 years as a coach. So $100,000 is still a lot of money, but I don't believe he should have a job. I don't believe he should have a job because he hasn't been very good at his job. Also, to describe the scenes that we saw on January the 6th as a fucking dust-up is not a slip of the tongue, especially if you see other things that he has said. Fuck you, Jack Del Rio. His team makes me sad, and the sooner it's not in the NFL, the better. Because of the fact that I decided to support them in 1992, you have to have a passing interest in what they do. They don't change my mood whether they win or lose, but they continually annoy the crap out of me by what they do. They're ran by an owner who's a joke and has allowed some of the worst things a franchise can do on his watch, and he's allowed to keep his franchise. He's hated that much that nobody in the area wants to allow him to build a new stadium. And they try and do good things by hiring coaches of integrity like Ron Rivera, and then he fucking hires Jack Del Rio, who seems like a right-wing racist. What are we doing here?
If I may come in, there is nothing your team, and I'm going to keep calling them yours, because I know you'd like to disassociate.
I'd like to, but I don't. I think I put it on Twitter. I put it on Twitter this week because a couple of people who I follow who support Washington in the area in the UK, and they just anger me on on a daily basis. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. You can carry on, Neil.
There is no situation that is so bad that Washington will not find a way to make worse. Either they'll do it, someone associated with them will do it. They just cannot help themselves. It is a toxic environment. It is a rancid football team in a crap hole of a stadium that no one wants to go to. And it's just 100,000. I'm terribly sorry, as I say. This man was a head coach in the NFL. He's had two stints as a head coach. He's been
two NFL jobs.
Yeah, he's been a defensive coordinator for 20 years. $100,000 is piss.
Exactly, agreed.
Yeah, the NFL have ballsed up. So Washington have ballsed up by not punishing him. The NFL can't really do anything, I don't think. Conduct detrimental, is it? Probably don't think it is. Washington could have taken a stand. Rivera could have taken the stand. It leads me to think that the decision to hire him and retain him is not Ron Rivera's. So it's just another balls up. So I honestly don't know what to say. Am I surprised that this prick has come out and said this? No, I'm not. Am I therefore surprised that he retains his job but gets a slight slap on the wrist in terms of his salary? No, I'm not. No. I wish I was. The world would be better if I was stunned by this, but I'm not.
And what makes it worse is we should slag off Washington for this, but I don't think anyone fires him, and that's probably just as bad. By the way, I've found the tweet. WFT are associates who got me involved in the NFL. I keep an eye out for their scores and I hope they win, but I'm no longer emotionally invested. Final thing, I know every time we come on the show, we say we're not going to talk about Deshaun Watson, and then more Deshaun Watson news comes up. I just want to point everybody to Sports Illustrated and the wonderful, in-depth, excellent article by Jenny Vrentas, who we've had on the show. New York Times. We've had on the show, Neil, right?
Several times.
She was a friend of Andy Sam's wife, I believe, or they went to the same school or college. Wonderful reporting. What I will say is, read it, be disgusted by it, you should be, and then think two things. What in the world were the Cleveland Browns thinking? And the other teams who tried to sign him. Like, Cleveland, quote unquote, won, but it wasn't a one-horse race. This was multiple teams trying to sign this guy. And then also think, what do the NFL need to suspend him? Because unless they're suggesting all the reporting by Jenny is a complete myth and fabricated, the guy should not play in the NFL again. Never mind, let's suspend him for a year, let's put him on the commissioner's exempt list.
Someone asked me before, a couple of years ago, the Philadelphia Eagles traded for Marquise Goodwin, and something happened and the trade was rescinded, so the draft pick compensation that went to San Francisco went back to the Eagles, as did the player. They said, bearing in mind that since the trade has happened, there have been further allegations and further lawsuits have been filed. Could the Browns say, we need to rescind this and send it back to Houston? And I said, no. Because Cleveland came out on several occasions and said, we've conducted our own investigation, we've looked into this, we are fine with it.
Neil,
Cleveland,
at
again...
At that point, there have been 22 official allegations filed. What we've got is 2 more.
Yeah.
So is someone trying to suggest to you that these 2 more mean, 22 was fine, but 24, that's it. We have to rescind this trade now. What?
Yeah. The problem, he was just asking it. I don't think it was a serious question in a sense, but I think he was just floating the possibility that the Browns could literally say, he's your problem now. the issue with that is that Houston have now been named in one of the lawsuits as providing the facilities for the alleged impropriety
And a non-disclosure and supplying
NDA,
him with an NDA.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Now, all I'll say is this: Jenny has done a fantastic job on a topic that I am sure she really would not want to be investigating.
Correct.
And I'm not just saying that because she's a lady. I don't think anyone who's interested in this sport wants this type of story.
She's an NFL reporter. She wants to report on the NFL.
Yeah. If you are averaging 3.5 massage appointments with different masseuses a month, you A, have a problem, or B, you have a serious ulterior motive. Now, I know a lot of people, a lot of sportsmen, are very particular about their equipment, about the advice they get, about the coaching, and about people who take care of them. Yeah. Tom Brady is not listening to Alex Guerrero and then someone else. That's his man. You have a masseuse that you trust. That's who you go to time and time and time again. You go to this many, you've got a problem. And we know now, say, what the alleged problem is. It's deviant, abhorrent behaviour.
Yes.
That unfortunately there should be no place for. However, this man, Peter King called him one of the most influential people in the NFL, yet again, shocking use of language by someone who should know better. What he means is, Deshaun Watson has more power and more tenure with the Cleveland Browns than his coach, than his general manager, because you've given him $250 million with all this in the air. The allegations that had come out, and now the fresh allegations, and you, as an organisation, gave him $250 million just because you've been a losing franchise for 30 years and balls with the consequences. You thought talent would overrule. And unfortunately, it really can't.
It ain't in this situation. Let's move on to the final one. The Denver Broncos have been sold for $4.6 billion with a B dollars to the Walmart family. Not secretly, also linked to the Cronkies and the Rams as, let me get this right, I think Stan Kroenke's married to
Ann Walton.
Mm-hmm. What I would like everyone to do is, when you get time, Google how much Stan Kroenke's worth, and then Google how much the Waltons are worth. Not the Waltons from the TV show, the ones who own Walmart.
Yeah, they were poor as piss.
These guys are not. I don't really know what to say about the fact, apart from the fact the Broncos have a new owner, and that owner, who ironically doesn't seem to spend any money in the Premier League, it spends loads of money in the NFL. So there's a suggestion that maybe the Broncos will do similar activities to what the Rams are doing.
A couple of things. David Tepper bought the Carolina Panthers in 2018 for $2.2 billion, which means the price of an NFL franchise has doubled in 4 years. And bear in mind...
Do you know why? Do you know what's happened in those 2 years? In those 4 years?
Go on.
Gambling.
Correct. Now, Americans don't get knighted. They don't have the system. Obviously, they don't have a monarchy like us. You get knighted in America as a businessman if you get to own an NFL franchise, because there's only 32, and only 31 actually comes under ownership. So if you get welcomed into this group, that's it. Everyone can stand and look at you. Two things. One, there's going to be a lot more owners who are going to start thinking about selling. Just because, I can still make money, but how much money now I can take that and get away from this? But also, don't listen to any owners if they piss and moan about any financials in the next few years after this. Nothing. Don't want to hear about it. Salary cap, don't want to hear about it. Free agents, can't pay coaches, can't pay this player, don't want to hear about it. Collective bargains, don't want to hear about it. Your franchise is worth $5 billion today. Tomorrow it could be 6. Don't want to hear any hardships. Don't want to hear how you need cities to contribute to build your stadiums. Not interested. Do it your fucking selves.
Yeah. 4.6 billion. They are not the Dallas Cowboys. They are not the 2 New York teams. They are not, I don't know, Pittsburgh Steelers. Do you know what I mean? The Denver Broncos are a highly successful NFL franchise and have been for years. But I'm not sure. They're probably in the top 10, but definitely not in the top 5. So if I'm Jerry and the Denver Broncos have just been sold for 4.6, what do you reckon the Dallas Cowboys are worth? 7? 10? Yeah. I'm not. I'm fine with that.
Jericho name is price.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Okay, Liam, let's move on. Let's talk about coaches on the hot seat. So, Neil, you said that you would like to look at coaches who, on the 10th of June 2022, are going to be on the hot seat all season, if they survive all season. And I said, okay, that's cool. But what we should do is how will their fantasy players be impacted by those coaches being on the hot seat? Now, those coaches may use them more, may use them less. It depends on who it is and what they're doing. You have 5 names, Neil. So let's go down the list, and we'll start with your number 1, who I assume is the first person on everyone's list, which is Matt Rule of the Carolina Panthers.
I don't think there's any question that Matt Rule has been a borderline disaster as an NFL head coach. His teams have been poor. The quarterback play has been abysmal across a number of different people. And David Tepper, as we said, is a very rich man. He's also not a very patient man. So I think he may have been sold a bill of goods that this was going to be an analytically based franchise, and it hasn't been. Because this is where you get head coaches saying, we want to run the ball 35 times a game. It's 2022, dickhead, not 1974. So I don't think there's any question that we've seen that Tepper doesn't mind firing during the season. He fired the winningest coach in franchise history during the season, when it was going badly, of course, but he did it. There's nothing stopping him from firing Rule. And if they get abject play from the quarterback again, spoiler, they will, he could be gone by Thanksgiving.
How does that impact CMC?
It makes CMC one of the few players you could conceivably tell yourself a story. I might take him over Jonathan Taylor, especially in PPR leagues, because if he is healthy, he is going to be force-fed the ball because Matt Rule wants to run it. He wants to force-feed his best runner, and also that means that McCaffrey's going to be on the field all the time. It's not going to hurt McCaffrey at all. It's going to help him. May he pick up more injuries? Yeah, but running backs pick up injuries. It happens. It's not a negative thing. So I don't think it affects him in the slightest. It's a downgrade for everyone else anyway, because crap quarterbacks cannot prop up fantasy relevant wide receivers. DJ Moore is one of the best young wide receivers in the game. I generally think that. He's never scored more than 4 touchdowns in a season because his team does not score a lot of touchdowns. So doesn't hurt CMC in the slightest.
Move on, Neil. He may be pretty, but he's on the hot seat, and that's Cliff Kingsbury of the Arizona Cardinals.
I just think that the way the Cardinals have faded down the stretch the last 2 seasons, eventually ownership is going to get bored of it. I mean, they backed into the playoffs last year and were never in the game against the Rams. Well, I'm sorry, didn't they clean the Rams' clock for them during the regular season? So eventually it's going to look and say, why do we get worse as the season progresses when everyone else is hitting their stride? And it comes down to the coaching. Now, have they got better every season? Yeah, they have. Every season the win total has gone up, but they fade. And unfortunately, I think the Cardinals have got themselves into a situation where they think they are contenders. Well, that means you challenge for the bye, and it also means you get a home game. Now, whether I think they're good enough to compete to win their division, I don't. But ultimately, it comes down to the fact that this team is not as talented as they think they are. They have made mistakes on draft picks, especially on defense. They are obsessed with finding positionless players, where, again, it doesn't matter. You can be versatile, but these lads have still got to go to a meeting room. You can't say, well, I consider myself a defensive weapon. Yeah, linebacker's room there, safety's there. Where are you going, dickhead? So I think if you don't think he's under pressure this year, you've not been paying attention.
I don't know any of the players on defense apart from JJ Watt. The depth chart is on offense is Kyler Murray, who I think is fantastic, but is also 2'4" and can get injured. James Conner, a suspended Nuke Hopkins. Marquise Brown, who I think is now Kyler Murray's best mate. He stopped being Lamar Jackson's best mate, right?
Mm-hmm.
AJ Green, who's 100. Mm-hmm. Zach Ertz, also 100. And then an offensive line, I guess. How does Cliff being on the hot seat affect? I guess it'd be Kyler Murray and Marquise Brown as the best players, given the fact that Nuke's suspended.
Fantastic article by Nate Tyson, The Athletic, this week about how this offense could look without DeAndre Hopkins. This offense has been great when Kyler Murray has been healthy. It's probably not been a coincidence that their two fades in the last two seasons have occurred after Murray has got hurt. So, again, Murray is in that quarterback bracket where you probably wouldn't feel bad about getting him. You just wonder, well, where's my stacking option here? Who do I pair him with? Do I go Marquise Brown, who I'm not a fan of? Do I wait and pass up all the good tight ends and go Zach Ertz? Or do I run the risk of playing Kyler Murray naked, as it were? It's risky. Now, I think this offense can score points. I think the defense is shaky. I just don't know who else I don't know who else I want from this team, because I just don't trust Marquise Brown. Rondale Moore needs to convert to running back because his average depth of target last year was 1.5. Jesus Christ, I've fallen over and gone further than that. So they're under pressure. Cliff's on the hot seat. He has to basically go through Kyler Murray like he has done, but they need to do a better job of keeping Murray healthy if they're not going to fade away again.
Move on to number 3, Neil. One of my faves, Pistol Pete Carroll, and the Seattle Seahawks.
This team's going to be bad. I could go off into long-winded explanations of this, but I don't think I have to. This team is going to be bad. This is a franchise that for years we've criticised because they were Arsenal. Just getting there was enough. Well, they're not going to get there because their quarterback competition is a race between Geno Smith and Drew Lock that apparently Geno's winning. Whoop-de-doo. The amazing race continues. They're going to want to run the ball despite the fact they don't have the defense to keep them in games. They now do not have a quarterback who can pull a play out of his arse when they need it. This team is going to be bad, and it will not be pretty, but it will be funny.
And at what week does DK Metcalf lose his shizzle?
They're probably looking for his shizzle now. I don't see how you can confidently draft DK Metcalf in its current ADP, given that this team is going to be A, run heavy, B, bad, C, going to be so bad that they can't afford to be run heavy and going to have to pass the ball, and it's Geno Smith or Drew Lock getting them the rock. DK Metcalf, I know he wants to be paid. He wants the big money deal. I'd ask for the trade first.
I'd take the AJ Brown approach. Neil, let's move on. You gave me this list, and number 4 you said Lovey, and I said, wait there, who's Lovey Smith the coach of? And then I remembered it's the Houston Texans. Yeah, go. I don't really know what to say on Lovey or the Houston Texans, to be honest.
Houston Texans have interviewed Josh McCown for their head coaching position in each of the last 2 seasons. Both times he didn't get the job because they might have just thought, it's still not particularly credible to give him it. Third time lucky. Josh McCown's going to be the Texans head coach this time next year. Smith's on borrowed time. He's there because no one else wanted the job and they wanted to give it to Josh McCown. So there's nothing he can do to save himself. They outperformed themselves last year under David Culley. They should have gone 0-17. They probably should have, yeah. Especially once their quarterback decided he wasn't going to play and probably shouldn't have been playing anyway. He's on the hot seat. There's nothing he can do to save himself because this team has made it their destiny to have Josh McCown as their head coach, despite a complete lack of NFL coaching experience.
Do they have any fantasy relevant players?
Brandon Cooks is perpetually undervalued. I mean, this guy's had 1,000 yards everywhere he's been with a variety of quarterbacks. Is he going to go on and be a wide receiver one? No. Why? Because they're not going to score very many touchdowns. But is he going to get you, 7-8 catches for 80 yards every week? Yeah. Where he's being drafted at the moment, he's going as a wide receiver 3. He can certainly live up to that ADP and maybe have weeks where he goes over it if he does find the end zone, but he's the only one. There's no league winners in this offense. Get Cooks and then close the Texans tab in the draft browser.
Final coach you name, Neil, is Ron Rivera, Washington Commanders. Yeah, why not?
Builder of culture, yeah, but unfortunately the culture may have included an NFC East title. It was with a losing record. They've been bad under him. I'm not blaming Rivera for this because the core is rotten and all the other parts are rotten. But when there's pressure on you as the owner, there's pressure on other staff members who you undoubtedly have hired. When you can't get funding even to, for people to look and vote on a stadium proposal in their land, when RFK Stadium basically say you will never be here again. You can't fire yourself, so you fire someone else.
So the two fancy relevant players on the Commanders are probably Terry McLaurin and Antonio Gibson. Does pressure on Rivera affect them in any way?
Well, no, because Washington have told us, this coaching staff and this front office have told us everything we need to know about Antonio Gibson. They don't see him as a 3-down player. You draft at your risk. Is he going to see the bulk of the carries? Well, yeah. But is he going to see the bulk of the targets? No. Because they've re-signed J.D. McKissick. They've brought in Brian Robinson. They're telling us that they do not think he's a 3-down player. He's been with the team 3 seasons. Now, I know I don't trust a lot of what Washington are saying, but if they're telling us this, then they're not going to flip it on its head and play him 99% of the snaps. It's not going to happen. So be very careful where you draft him, because I know the talent is enticing. Unfortunately, talent doesn't matter shit against opportunity in fantasy football, and his opportunity is going to be limited because this is not a team that's going to score a boatload of touchdowns, so you can't even count on red zone visits to prop up his value. Terry McLaurin, the wide receiver 1, is always going to be a value to an extent in any offense. Is Carson Wentz an upgrade on Tyler Heineke? I'd like to think yes. How big an upgrade? Honestly, couldn't tell you. But is he going to get fed? Probably. Unless they deal him because he wants a contract and they don't want to give it to him either. But it's hard to get excited about this team because I think they're worse than the Giants. And the Giants aren't going to be that good either.
Neil, I had 4 additional names. That I think you've got the top 5, but I think, if things go wrong in certain places, could these people be on the hot seat? The first one I've got is Mike McCarthy. This franchise perpetually thinks they're good. I think it would be naive to suggest that this roster isn't worse than it was this time last year. And one thing that we know about the NFL is it's hard to repeat on defense. Now, does that mean I think Dak Prescott's not a very quarterback? Far from it. I think he's very good. I don't trust the play callers around him. They're still going to give Zeke Elliott a load of targets, a load of carries, which is probably not helpful for the team. And if they go 9-8, does Mike McCarthy keep his job? I'm not sure he does.
No, the man's a buffoon. He shouldn't have a job.
Welcome to me. I've been here a decade, but anyway, carry on.
He lied to Jerry Jones to get his job. I did all this analytics. You say what you want to get the job. I'd have fired him as soon as he said that. This team, though, we know on offense they're going to play fast. They're going to pass the ball a lot. So you want pieces. You want CeeDee Lamb, especially with no Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup injured. You want Tony Pollard at his price because he's going to have standalone value, and also we know that should anything happen to Elliott, he steps into a workhorse role. Do we want Elliott? He's going to have to drop a bit for me. If there was just a way, if there was just a way that Tony Pollard started and got passing down work, but they wheeled in Ezekiel Elliott for short yardage and touchdowns, I'd want them all. But they're not going to do that. The best value for this team, considering in terms of ADP, is Dalton Schultz, assuming he's there, which he's going to have to be, because he either signs his tag or he doesn't play.
Yeah.
Whether he's there in 2023, not my problem. He's the low-cost way of getting a Dallas stack in fantasy, because you have Dak. You don't want CeeDee Lamb because he's probably going too early, and you might like other wide receivers around there who've got a bit more of a defined role, because we still don't know if CeeDee Lamb going to play in the slot. Is he going to play outside? We don't know. So you might want to take Prescott where you can get him, and then wait, and then take Dalton Schultz.
We talked briefly about the Cleveland Browns. Based on how things are going, I'm not 100% sure their quarterback's on the roster right now. Because the two quarterbacks who are on the roster, one is going to be released and one's going to be suspended, which leads me to believe that there's a chance that the Cleveland Browns could be a total disaster area this year, and then that would get Kevin Stefanski fired.
Well, they did sign Jacoby Brissett in free agency, obviously to him to be the backup. Now, I'm not saying of a talent-wise, is he up there with the other two? I don't know. Is he a competent NFL quarterback? Yes. Did this team win games with competent NFL quarterbacking last year and the year before when Case Keenum was under centre? Yes. What did they change their game plan? No. They ran the ball and tried to play action off it. Now, Nick Chubb is going to be a player that fantasy managers are going to be tormented by forever because he's probably the best pure runner in the NFL, not named Lamar Jackson, but he doesn't catch passes. And ultimately, that's always going to count against him. That's why you cannot draft Nick Chubb in the first round of PPR or half PPR leagues. Maybe a push, especially while Kareem Hunt's there. So Nick Chubb is going to lead the league in carries, maybe. He's going to be up there in yardage. But he'll finish outside the top 6 running backs because he doesn't catch passes. And that doesn't matter who the running back is, who the quarterback is.
Third one I had, Neil, was Dennis Allen of the New Orleans Saints. I know that we have joked in the past in group text and on this show about Sean Payton and not winning stuff. But I think we underestimate how good a coach he is, and I think we're about to find out that this team is not very good. And the good thing possibly for the Saints and why Dennis Allen might not get fired is he has 4 games against the Falcons and the Panthers.
Can Dennis Allen recreate his defensive magic while still calling the plays? And how much did Pete Carmichael learn at the knee of Sean Payton? These are the questions. This team has question marks, though. Alvin Kamara might be suspended for chunks of the season, especially if somehow video emerges of what he was doing. A-line flares with pockets in the knees will come back before Michael Thomas does, because it's been 2 years now. Something's not right. Whether it's the health, which obviously you'd assume it is because he's been out injured this long. Is it an attitude thing? Is it a relationship with the franchise? Because the reports are not rosy. I don't see how you can draft any Saints player with confidence, especially if they're not going to let Jameis be Jameis and just fill the air with footballs. Everyone has, they might be a nice value, but what if Kamara misses 6 games? What if Thomas doesn't come back? You'd want to trust Chris Olave on this team. Well, there's your wide receiver 3, and that's as high up as I'll be prepared to take him. And I'm drafting him in Dynasty, hoping they get him a quarterback next year.
Okay. Final one for me, Neil, is one of them shots in the dark where you're like, there will be a team who everyone thinks are good and it doesn't work out, and they'll need to make a change. And in that one for this year, I've looked at Frank Reich for the Colts. I know he just keeps on getting a different, former franchise quarterback to try and help him along. And this year he spanned the wheel and got Matt Ryan. I got no real issue with Matt Ryan. But if he's in a terrible division, and if they don't do anything, when do you start thinking, well, we need to make a change somewhere? You can't just keep on changing the quarterback every year and they pull the trigger on Frank Reich.
See, I don't think this is going to be much of a problem because I have the Colts winning the division. And so I don't think it's going to be an issue. But if they win the
division, do you think they're favourites in a playoff game against the Chargers? I don't.
Probably not. But I just worry. I don't worry. I think the Colts are one of those teams that they get there, and that's an achievement because ASA obviously loves Reich, and they love Ballard, even though he keeps drafting the wrong people in certain spots. This is a team that they know what they're about. I think they know their identity. It's just a shame they haven't been able to have the same quarterback year in, year out. Otherwise, they'd have probably done a lot better. And they're not flashy. They're a bit like a Volvo. But I think one thing that we like about this team, especially from a fantasy point of view, is it's a concentrated touch allocation. So we know Jonathan Taylor's going to get fed. We know Michael Pittman, where he's going, is probably one of the best value wide receivers in the NFL. We know if you're doing best ball at the moment, or if you're going to be starting doing best ball, where he's going. Naeem Hines is going to come in. He's going to do a role. Who else have they got? Mo Ali Cox? No. You can't keep fooling me with this. Jelani Woods, rookie tight end? No. Ashton Doolan, please. All-pro kick returner? That's it. They've got Alec Pierce. So what? That's just Ashton Doolan, but with better draft capital. So we know that there's the team. They're the players you want to be drafting from this team. Doesn't hurt fancy because again, that's what they're going to do. They're going to lean on JT, and then they'll trust Matt Ryan to make some plays to Michael Pittman. So I don't think if he is on the hot seat, which as I say, I don't think he is, but if he was going to be, that just makes Michael Pittman far more attractive. But if you want Jonathan Taylor, you're going to have to take him first or maybe second anyway. So no issue.
Onto it. Fantastic stuff, Neil. Fantastic stuff. 9 names there. I think 5. I think Neil's 5 are pretty much nailed on. Mine are more stuff has got to go badly, but it could do. So we will see. And Neil, that's it for this week. About to push on the hour mark in June. It's unbelievable. It's unheard of. The NFL is insane. Neil, before we're back again, where can people catch you?
Find me on Twitter at ndutton13. Couple of things I've done this week. One, I wrote a piece for Numberfire about, Coach of the Year and some candidates for that. I've also, and it's been released, and I can say this, I've been contributing to the world famous draft kit for Roto Underworld. As I say, there are underdog best ball top 50s, the seasonal top 300 player rankings, and that's in PPR, half PPR, and standard scoring. There are 32 team insights looking at last year, so a 2021 season review. We look at a signature trend from each team. Is it pace of play? Is it players you want from fantasy? Is it pass attempts? We look at them for all 32 teams. There are 32 team outlooks for 2022. This thing is absolutely huge. I'm always pleased, proud and honoured to take part in it. So if you go to playerprofiler.com//draftkit/, go there. If you're serious about fantasy this year, you need this draft kit in your life. Also, another thing I'd like to say as well, on Friday, as we're recording this, Erica Tamposi, friend of the podcast, it's her last day working at NFL Network. She has been a superstar for all the things she's done, all the podcasts, all the TV work. She has been, a fixture where they've had so much turnover at producer. So, congratulations on a great run. Hats off to you. Best wishes wherever you go. We know she'll be a success wherever.
Fantastic news, and co-sign all of that from Neil, whether it be the draft kit or for Erica. I'm at Mainty7, combined with at Waxing_Lyrical. I have dusted off the typewriter. As I've said, I'm doing draft reviews for the NFC's teams. I've only got one left to do. It's Washington. Can't really bring myself to post it yet. So, but it'll be coming in the next few days and probably be out next week or so. We got the Giants, we've got the Eagles, we got the Cowboys. Neil was probably mad at me because I was majorly high on the Eagles. That is it for us. We are out 10 o'clock on a Friday night. We're old, so we're doing podcasts rather than boozing, and that's how we roll because these top guys are out.